Great, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the Leaders in Housing Counseling call. This is our last call for 2014. I do have to say it's been a great year for our work, and even though there were some disappointments right here at the end, I think we've really moved a lot of our program, a lot of our opportunities forward. I think our reputation and our skill level and capacity has increased this year as an industry, as a community. I think we're tackling big problems, but at least we're pretty clear that what the headwinds are and what we need to do. I was really impressed by the conversation, the level of the conversation, the commitment of the people at our leaders meeting last Thursday, and I feel very hopeful about the future, so this is just a shout out to all of you for the good work you're doing. We've got a crowded call today. We just wanted to bring you up to date on the things that have happened in the last 2 weeks, especially the last week, around legislative and programmatic issues, especially around D.C. But we also have Ruth Roman coming on from HUD and want to leave plenty of time for that part of the conversation. And if we have time, we'll talk about the highlights from the leaders meeting, though I'm suspecting we may not get very far into that given the schedule. So let's dive in right away. Matthew, why don't you give us a quick rundown on the on housing counseling funding and what's happened most recently?
All right, and I will go pretty quickly through this. For FY 2016, just a quick, wanted to let everyone know that we did submit our letter to OMB since our last call. It was signed by 131 groups, and in it we asked for $60 million for the HUD housing counseling assistance, which would be an increase from what you see down here, the current level of $47 million, and an increase, we would keep NFMC level funded. As folks, this is probably not news to anyone on the call, but we just wanted to go over quickly what happened with the FY 2015 appropriation. So that was, House and Senate leadership kind of struck a deal. It's going to fund the government through the rest of the fiscal year, so through October 31st. So it's, we'd been doing they had been doing continuing resolutions. So that's there's some bonus and benefit to having certainty of what the funding levels are going to be for the rest of the year. The numbers are $47 million for HUD housing counseling assistance. We had expected that it would be somewhere in the range of the $47 million that the House had passed and $49 million that the Senate had passed. So that's not a surprise. And the $50 million for NFMC was not at all a surprise since both the House and Senate had agreed on those numbers. The thing that was surprising with the budget was, well, there were a few things that kind of got wrapped into it. The thing that got the most attention was rolling back Dodd-Frank provision. Elizabeth Warren made a really big deal about it and tried to get. She encouraged House Democrats to vote against it while that was in there. But the thing that really matters for us was the HAWK program. They included language that had been in the House bill that prevents any of the funds that were appropriated this year from being used to implement HAWK. That's obviously really bad news for us. It's a program, and I'm not sure Ruth may talk more about HAWK, but it's a program that we were all very excited about. We think it was a great thing for borrowers to get access to a more affordable, sustainable mortgages. So that's something that we need to work on for getting back in for FY 2016, or at least whether through the appropriations process or through the actual authorizing process. We'll just briefly mention the two issues that we were hearing for why it was out. One was that it hadn't been, it was included in, that it hadn't gone through the authorized committee, which in the House case, it's the Financial Services Committee. And then the other concern we had heard from the Senate side was that they weren't satisfied that the mortgage insurance fund was healthy enough, and that they were concerned it would be taking money out of that. I think HUD and FHA's internal projections were that it would be a net gain for the fund. So not sure whether that's disingenuous or not, but just by way of a brief explanation. The other thing that passed as they were wrapping up was the tax extenders package that we had expected. We had talked about, expecting that it was going to happen either during the lame duck or early in the new Congress. They got that done, and it did include the Mortgage Debt Relief Act, so that's good news for homeowners. If anyone who receives any principal reduction who has received in 2014, or if it happens in the last 2 weeks of 2014, then they will not have to claim that as taxable income. There was a little bit of controversy. The chairman of the committee that the bill came out of voted against it, Ron Wyden from Oregon. There was just a lot of frustration that they were passing a bill that had two weeks left before it expired, and just dissatisfaction with the dysfunction of the Senate. Did you want to jump in with anything, Bruce? Okay. And then the last thing I'll just mention, this isn't legislative, but there was a lot of action from FHFA last week. The thing we wanted to talk about here quickly was that Fannie and Freddie announced that they would begin purchasing loans with LTVs up to 97%, so the current limit is 95%. There is a requirement, housing education requirement. This was the disappointing part of this, was that we had hoped and pushed for there to be HUD-approved housing counseling as a requirement. Instead, it's home buyer education, anything that satisfies the current Freddie standards, which is the national standards, the specific Freddie program. So that's a disappointment that it's a pretty lax, a pretty low threshold for what satisfies that. And the other thing is that it's not, on the Fannie side, it's not even all required. The education component doesn't apply to all borrowers. It's just borrowers in a particular program, which are generally 100% or below area median income. Then the other thing to mention that I think is important, and we'll spend a lot of time talking about next year, is that we're already hearing pushback on that against these loans, and really, pushing the narrative that we're getting back into the kind of subprime lending that got us into the crisis. And it's very important, and will be very important for us to respond effectively to that, to make sure that we're pushing the message that there's a real need for affordable access to sustainable, responsible mortgage credit for low and moderate income people and communities of color. And I think that we really need to be pounding that message home, and making sure that we're that we're winning the messaging war, and not letting that take hold the narrative that we're getting back to the crisis levels. So that was my attempt at being brief. Bruce, do you want to say anything else?
No, I think excellent summary. Highlight that we were at one of the rare places where there was an increase in funding to get from 45 to 47 million out of the TIAD budget was remarked by everybody as being pretty unusual, and tribute to your work. I think we will have discussions, if we have time, we'll do it at the end of this call, but more likely in 2015, about how more effectively to engage with Republicans around the country. This is going to be a key piece of what our future will look like, so we need to pay some attention to that, and we will, and we have some good ideas about it, but we'll have a chance to talk about it more in the future. So I think what we're all looking forward to is we had an excellent discussion in last Thursday at the Leaders in Housing Counseling meeting with both Brian and with Ruth about the various issues that are in front of us with HUD, as well as the issues that came up from the HUD task force that we've been meeting with HUD about. And the meeting itself was very substantial, but also felt like this could use a little bit more time, and also give people a chance who weren't necessarily in the meeting to hear some of these things. We invited Ruth to come back. She was very gracious to join us, so we have Ruth Roman today. And Ruth, are you on the line?
Hi, Bruce. I am on the line. Can you hear me?
Okay, now you're going to need to speak up.
Hi, Bruce. Can you hear me?
Much better. Excellent. Good. Well, we're very glad you're here. Matthew's working on the slides right now.
Okay,
and
great.
Matthew, who controls switching the slides?
I think we should just have me do it, Ruth. If you could just
Okay.
tell me when to advance them.
Oh, that's fine. So you can see my slides now?
Yes, everyone's seeing the slides from my computer, though.
Okay, that's fine.
Great. Let's get going.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Bruce, for inviting me to join you all today. The National Housing Resource Center is such an important partner to the Office of Housing Counseling, and we appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of the industry and of the work of your members to help families across the country to meet their housing goals. So I'm happy, I was delighted to be with you last week and talk to many of your members, and looking forward to giving an update to more of your members today. You can go ahead and advance the slide. Thank you. So today I wanted to touch on a couple of topics. I'll go over with you all the funding, what's happening with our funding for FY15, give you an update on some of the initiatives that we are working on. Also give you an update on some of the issues that the center had asked us to focus on through the HUD task force that had been created, and also talk about some things that will be coming soon in this next year as well. And then, of course, take any questions that you have. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. So as Matthew was saying, in terms of FY15 funding, the Office of Housing Counseling did see an increase in the appropriations that was signed by the President. And so we did receive $47 million, which is a $2 million increase. So we think that does show a vote of confidence in the work that we're doing and that you all are doing on the ground. So it's not as much, of course, as what the President had asked for, but we were pleased that there was an increase. Next slide. Okay, so most of that funding that we will be receiving, of course, will go towards the grants, the FY14 grants, and how we're rolling that out is that all the FY14 grantees should have received an email from us asking that you submit to HUD your interest in receiving FY15 funds. We'll be using the same formula as we did in FY14. So that email went out, and hopefully you all have responded. We did have a deadline of December 23rd, so please submit that to housing.counseling@hud.gov if you haven't done so. We will follow up with any grantee that does not submit, because we do want to have something in writing to confirm whether or not FY14 grantees will be participating and will be requesting funds for FY15. Also in that email, we did indicate there's going to be a webinar tomorrow that you can join in on to talk about the letter that was sent out and to answer any questions. So I believe that webinar is taking place tomorrow at 11 Eastern Standard Time. Our goal is to announce those awards by the end of January, so hopefully we can do that by then, and then of course the grant agreements will follow. We also had signaled in the last NOFA that we may set aside some funds to do a supplemental NOFA in FY15, and that we would possibly make funds available to grantees or to agencies that were not eligible in FY14, like newly approved agencies. So there may be a supplemental NOFA coming out as well. Next slide, please. So I just also wanted to give everyone an update on where we are with the counselor certification rule. Of course, we're moving forward with that. It's something that we think will be is important for the industry, not only because it was mandated by statute, but also because we think it's an important step in enhancing the skills and competency of our counselors and agencies, and it'll be an important credential, standardized credential for all counselors to have. Next slide, please. So in terms of our timeline, we had published the proposed rule back in 2013. We got many comments. We appreciate all the feedback that we got from the industry. We can't really go into any detail about that, but we are hoping to publish the final rule sometime in March 2015.
So can I just ask you a quick question on that?
Absolutely.
So does that mean then that the certification will start in March or April 1 if everything gets out in time?
That's a good question. So what we intend to do is to make the effective date for the rule to be at least 1 year after the publication date. So that would still give more time for agencies and counselors to prepare to take the exam before the actual effective date happens. So a year from publication date.
So publication date would be March? Is that, am I understanding?
That's what we're targeting.
Right.
But it would not be effective for another 12 months.
So essentially we'd have, so if you published March 1st, then you'd have through February 28th, 2016 to become certified.
That's
Okay.
what our plan is. Of course, you know, what will be the final timeline and effective date and all that, of course, will be in the rule. So of course, read the rule closely. But that is what we would like to do, what we would like to see.
Okay. One other question to jump in is whether the education provider will be announced at the same time in the final rule publication.
The education provider.
I think for the training.
Okay, so I can talk about that. Actually, that was going to be my next. That's a good segue. On the next slide, you can advance the slide. What we want, of course, to be as helpful as possible to all counselors and agencies to prepare for this exam. So we are developing online training as well as a self-study guide and a practice exam. So that is one thing that HUD is doing directly. That information and those resources should be available in January 2015. We have a website that we will be launching that would have all those materials. Of course, training is not required, but we strongly encourage it. We also have been working with our training grantees, our training providers, and it's my understanding that they're also offering additional trainings to help counselors prepare for certification and to meet the Dodd-Frank requirements. So those resources are out there as well. Does that answer your question, Bruce?
Yes, and Matthew's question, yeah, I think, yeah.
Oh, is it Matthew? Okay, I'm sorry.
Right. And then do you have a timeline for when those materials will be available?
In January.
In January.
That's what we're targeting, yeah.
Great.
So during the call, Matthew will field questions that show up in our chat box.
Ah, okay, great.
And I don't imagine you can comment on this, but I'll ask anyway. If you can say anything about what the fees for the exam will be?
Yeah, you're right. I cannot comment on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we can go to the next slide.
So we'd like to encourage that there not be any fees.
Okay, I completely understand that.
Good.
And I will take that back to our group. We have, of course, heard that before, and we know there's a lot of concern about, you know, the costs that could be incurred, and what a burden that would be. So that was certainly part of the feedback we've been getting through the process. Okay, so now I'll talk give an update on some of the priority issues that were raised by the HUD task force that was pulled together with a number of members, and it's been a great partnership with you all working through a number of these issues. So we really do appreciate the feedback that we've gotten and your willingness to kind of work with the Office of Housing Counseling as we try to address all these issues. We can go to the next. So in terms of, there are basically 6 major issues that I'll run through today. The personal activity reports that we've gotten a lot of feedback on in terms of those reports being an administrative burden. Reporting in terms of some of the challenges around the time frames that HUD has around reporting. Issues regarding performance reviews, some customer service issues that were raised regarding our staff and who act as point of contact for all the agencies. We got feedback regarding our training, what we could be doing around helping to increase or do capacity building, as well as a specific request to have the secretary, when you all were here, we met with the secretary. There was a specific ask to him that he help or he host a technology summit and to help address some of the challenges that the industry is facing with technology. So I'll talk about those. Next slide. Next one. So just a little bit of a background and a recap. We certainly have gotten a lot of feedback about what a challenge these personal activity reports are. I just wanted to remind everyone that this is something that was a requirement from OMB regarding some of their sort of grant requirements, not just a HUD requirement. It was an issue that was raised to us, to our program by the IG and some audits that they did, and where they had findings saying that some agencies were not properly accounting for some of the grant expenses, which up until that point our rules were silent for the most part on what the specific requirements should, or how to fulfill that requirement. But once those audits came out, we went and sought out some guidance from consultants about exactly how agencies should comply with the personal activity reports requirement, and that's when we issued guidance. Next slide, please. So the new OMB Omni Circular supersedes their previous circulars regarding this issue, and so it's from our interpretation, it's our understanding that personal activity reports are not required. They're acceptable, but alternate formats for documenting expenses are also acceptable. We have been working with a consultant now to also understand, well, what does this mean for our grantees, and what exactly could those alternative formats look like? So we're planning on doing some training for our agencies to give further guidance on this, as well as developing some templates that agencies could use. Next slide, please. So we would certainly love to get feedback from you all on this. If there are formats that you think HUD should consider using as a template or model for grantees, that would be very helpful. And you should submit that to us. We know that this is also an issue regarding what client management systems, what capacities they have to document these expenses and produce reports. So we encourage you to have these conversations with your client management systems as well, as to how if there'll be any changes to how you're currently documenting these expenses. So this is something that I believe the new circular is effective. I don't have the exact date here, but it's December 26th. Next slide, please. So as I said, oh no, we're going on to performance measures. Absolutely.
Why don't we pause? Do you have questions in the queue, or should I? Well, so let me ask, just sort of on the PARs. So
yes.
So you're saying we no longer have to do a PAR specifically, but we do have to, when you say alternative format, do you have more information on what that means, and or maybe what it is specifically that we're trying to achieve? That, I mean, it sounds like we have greater flexibility under the new OmniCircular,
Right.
But understanding exactly what that gives us is, I think, what people are asking.
Right, and we completely understand that. We are working with our consultants to flesh that out as well. So we're using language that was in the OmniCircular. And we're in the process of developing, seeking further information as to what, how agencies should implement that or what that would look like. And so we're hoping to pull that together and provide for more information in an upcoming webinar.
And just in terms of what groups should be doing now with their PAR, I mean, I guess we're in a kind of information vacuum moment here. And that's
right. Well, I mean, one thing that they could do is to continue doing what they're doing until we provide further guidance, or if they have something that an alternative format they want to use and want us to review that, we'd be happy to do that. It's not as if we will have an official call for everyone to, send in a PAR or an alternative format for us to approve. That's not something that we're planning, but at the moment, we're doing more research to have a better understanding of how, of what guidance we can give to help agencies implement the new circular.
okay. And Matthew, I saw other questions in the queue.
Yep. First is whether the performance period for FY 2015 will be 12 months from April 2015 or a different period of time.
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
Whether the performance period for FY 2015 will be April for 12 months following April 2015, or if it's another period of time.
For the FY15 grant?
Yes.
I think that timeline will be confirmed, of course, in the grant agreement. So I'm not. I can't say right now what that will be.
Okay. And just one other, going back to the training for the certification, I think the question is basically whether you imagine the materials you're putting together are like a comprehensive training package and should take the place of like a paid training course, or whether you expect that it would need to be supplemented, or I guess how comprehensive you envision your training materials being.
I think that will have to be up to the individual counselor and agency to decide once they look at the materials. We certainly are developing training and information that covers the 6 different areas of Dodd-Frank, but it will be up to the agency and counselor to decide, if additional training is, necessary or would be helpful. I've been getting, excellent feedback on the training that's out there, so I can't say that ours would necessarily take the place of what's available.
Okay, and just one other question just came in. We just got a major finding in our review regarding the PAR. When will HUD instruct reviewers that an alternative format is allowed? If the reviewer will not accept an alternative method, how do we appeal?
Yes, so we are conducting internal training regarding, actually this week, I believe, on the changes in the OmniCircular, and so we want to make sure that all of our staff know what the new rules are, and the flexibility that's allowed in the new rules. So staff, certainly, this week should be aware of the changes and what's acceptable. In terms of I would have that conversation, if necessary, with your reviewer. If there's still some issues regarding that, I was going to go into this a little later, but I can mention it now, that we are establishing a central point of contact for complaints where issues or compliments, we say, complaints or compliments. But if you're having an issue that can't be resolved with your point of contact, you can, we're putting together a process where you can elevate that to management. And Phyllis Ford, who's a director in our, division director in our Office of Oversight and Accountability, she's going to be that central point of contact. So that could certainly be raised with her.
All right. Just one more question, so I guess maybe it's a comment, but it's about for the certification for counselors who are new to the field, say with less than a year of experience, and they haven't had a lot of experience with the 6 core areas that are going to be tested, whether there would be additional time allowed for them to pass the exam rather than the additional time beyond the 1 year.
So the final rule, whatever timeline is outlined as an effective date in the final rule, will be that will be the requirement for all counselors and agencies that are going to participate in our program.
Great, thank you. That's all we've got for now.
Okay.
So one other question, which is, what is the OIG?
Sorry. Office of the Inspector General, which is every federal agency, I believe, has that office, and they're responsible for ensuring that each federal agency is implementing and operating, administering their programs without any fraud, waste, or abuse. Next slide. Oh, next slide. I think I covered that. So I can talk a bit about, in terms of what we're doing with regards to performance measures and reporting. One thing we'd love to get feedback on are the changes that we made to our 9902 form. We had gotten a lot of feedback from the industry about some of the challenges around that. Just sometimes some of the outcomes were difficult to capture, or it wasn't possible to report multiple outcomes for the same household, and some of the outcomes were confusing to report on. So the next slide, please. We made changes this year, as you're aware. There are multiple outcomes that can be reported now. There are more specific outcomes that counselors can can specifically report on in terms of an outcome that they've achieved with a client, like creating a sustainable budget. And we've added new fields, like capturing data on client households from rural areas or those with limited English proficiency. So hopefully you're finding those that report to be the use of that to be easier in terms of collecting information and reporting to HUD. It'd be great to get some feedback on that. Next slide. One of the issues and challenges that we heard about from members is just around the timeline for submitting quarterly reports, particularly from intermediaries that are collecting that data from all of their affiliates. Based on our research, we went back and confirmed that the timeline for submitting quarterly reports is something that is regulatory, and that it's basically quarterly reports are due 30 days after the reporting period. There was a concern, too, that there's not enough time to provide or submit applications regarding the NOFA. That was something that we did get more time from the Appropriations Act did allow us, grant us more time in awarding grants. The time frame went from 120 days to 180 days. So in the future, there should be some more flexibility around when applications are due. So hopefully we can address that concern. Next slide. Next slide. We've been doing a lot of work on revising and streamlining the performance reviews. We issued a new HUD 9910 this year, which has a section in which the agencies are self-certifying information. We found a reduction in the time, so almost a 50% reduction in the time that agencies and HUD have spent on preparing and completing the HUD review. All staff have been trained, and we've standardized our internal procedures and desk guides. So you should be. Hopefully, this has been your experience in these reviews, more recent reviews that have been done this year, and we would love to get feedback on that. We are drafting a performance review protocol specifically for intermediaries as well. Right now, it's called a 9905, and we're testing that in December and January. We also revised the policy. We were getting feedback that intermediaries were not necessarily being informed of when a review was happening or what the findings were, and so we revised our protocols so that those letters were going directly to the intermediary in addition to the affiliate, so that the intermediary would be sure to be in the loop regarding all performance reviews. Next slide, please. There are still more revisions in the works. We've been going through a process of looking at risk and risk management, and we are hoping to streamline the performance review process even further, where we're focusing on 3 major risk factors. And those 3 factors are, how is the agency doing in terms of being a steward of federal funds? Are they providing quality counseling? And what's their organizational capacity to administer housing counseling program? And it looks like, I think we've streamlined and reduced the number of questions, but it looks like we'll be able to do that even more. So I think now there are about 130 questions as a part of the review process, and it looks like there'll be less than 40 now. So there's stay tuned. There'll be more streamlining coming in the future with regards to this process.
You've made lots of progress in the performance reviews, and it's great. It's this idea of having desk reviews and being able to submit materials ahead of time. Those things are great. When you're in the performance reviews, when you talk about quality counseling, can you say more about what that would look like in the review?
Yeah, we're fleshing all of this out in these 3 different areas. I think in terms of quality counseling, there are different things that we've been looking at to date in terms of are the training with regards to is the counselor, have they received recent training? Are they utilizing or following the requirements in terms of what the tools that need to be utilized during counseling sessions? So are they reviewing the budget, doing financial analysis, coming up, developing an action plan? What is happening during the counseling session? Is there follow-up? So looking at the things that are required, is there documentation that those things are taking place? And if there's any feedback on any of those categories and what we should be looking at or indicators of those things, that would be, we would love to get feedback on that as well.
And that's actually one of the questions we have is where people should send feedback on the PAR formats and or 9902 changes.
I think for now, trying to think of where to send those. I think specifically for now, if you have specific feedback, I would say send them to me, and I could channel them to the right place, as opposed to just sending it to our housing.counseling email. So my email is ruth.roman@hud.gov.
All right, and I'll send that out as a chat message so people have it.
And then after this, Matthew always puts out kind of a follow-up email, which will have that address in it as well, so and what people can do.
Okay.
And then one other question is the effective date for no longer submitting PARs.
So I was talking about this with our policy folks, and I believe that what I was told is for FY14, whatever the requirement is in the grant agreement is what is still in effect for that grant. And so any changes I believe would be for the FY15 grant, but let me confirm that. I think we of course would send out any specific guidance out in either a housing notice or in an email blast. So I don't have a specific date, and I'd want to confirm that with our policy folks. So I would say, when that to be on the look for further guidance, and they would probably speak to that in the webinar as well that's being planned.
Great. That's all the questions for now.
Okay, next slide. So another area that we got a lot of feedback on is this issue of customer service from all the staff that are points of contact to agencies. And so just as a little bit of background, every staff, there are, I think at this point, the numbers keep changing, but maybe 72 or so staff in the Office of Housing Counseling. Every single person has a portfolio of agencies, even Sarah Jarik, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary, and they have a role as a point of contact. The Office of Housing Counseling has been up and running over 2 years, and the staff came from different offices in HUD before and had different varying responsibilities related to the Office of Housing Counseling, related to housing counseling. So we had to go through a retraining process, which we did. We had a very intensive staff training program across all different areas related to our program. We understand that there's some challenges that still exist. Next slide, please. So there are a number of things. What we heard, I guess part of what we heard was that there's some points of contact were not being as, did not appear to be being very responsive, or the agencies were having some challenges in working through an issue or contacting them. And so one thing to also understand about points of contact is that our office, there are many, we have 3 different offices or 4 different offices within our office, and there's staff that are working on multiple issues, so that even if there's a staff person in the policy office, they're also on teams. They're working, on issues related to oversight, or they're helping, working on marketing issues. So in addition to managing a portfolio, they're working on multiple projects. And so one of the challenges that we found in talking with staff is that there was a need to rebalance our workload and to readjust some of the portfolios in terms of the number of agencies that points of contact are responsible to work with. So that's something we've been working on and that we're doing. And we're in the process of making those changes. We've hired new staff to help spread the work. We're also looking at streamlining our own internal processes and automating some of those business processes. And we also created a policy development committee, so that if there's an issue out there that we need to come up with a standard interpretation, we'll elevate that issue. And if that team or that committee is comprised of management across from all the different offices, and once a decision is made, that's something that staff are made aware of and are trained on. And so that's another way that we're hoping to standardize the interpretation of policy. Next issue. Next slide. Oh, okay. And so this I mentioned earlier we are creating a central point of contact to elevate any issues without any fear of retribution, and that process is in development. We want your input in terms of creating, what that process should look like, and Phyllis Ford, as I mentioned earlier, will be that central point of contact.
So we'll get out her email information in the email that goes out as well. I think we did circulate some information about this a couple weeks ago, but we'll reinforce that as well.
Okay, great.
But that's great. I mean, I think, and just a note of appreciation, I think there was a lot of concern people had about, wanting to be both responsive but also worried that there might be some negative blowback from a point of contact if people are raising concerns. And this is a good neutral way of giving people the space to do this in. So that was responsive, and we appreciate it.
Good, good.
And I'll just jump in with maybe a couple questions. First is whether any of the material in the toolkit has been updated in the last 6 months.
I can't speak to that in terms of, I would have to reach out to Jerry Mayer, who sort of manages all the information that is posted there. I know that, I can say that I know we are working on new tools now with a variety of contractors, but I can't, what I can do is send an email to Bruce after the call once I touch base with Jerry Mayer, who's the director of our Outreach and Capacity Building Office, about flagging what may be new, and Bruce can share that.
Great. And just one other kind of a comment, I think, from Judy Hunter, and I think it's something that she's flagged before, but she said that you mentioned that the report due dates are regulatory. She said she can live with the reports being due 30 days after the quarter end, but the bigger issue is having draws being due at the same time. And she said that's a recent change by HUD, so she's assuming that it's not a regulatory one. I don't know if you want to respond to that or just know that she's, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. If we, I guess, could get more feedback as to what you would like the policy to be, that would be helpful.
So maybe that's something, this is an issue that I know is a big one for Judy. Maybe we can, but I think the ask would be to separate them out so that they're not happening at the same time. So if you have, she followed up saying intermediaries need more time to approve draws of our subgrantees. But maybe that's something we should all follow up together on with Judy.
Yep, absolutely.
That's all for now. Thanks.
Okay. So the next slide, please. There's a lot that we're doing around training and capacity building. We have tried to increase our communication with stakeholders in our agencies. I think there are 13,000 that are subscribed to our listserv, and we publish the Bridge every month, our newsletter. We've had lots of stakeholder meetings to get feedback as well, and many webinar trainings. There is a plan that has been developed for 2015, and I think it's in the process of being finalized and should be posted to our web page on HUD.gov very soon. And there are over 60 different activities that are listed there. So I think there are a lot of opportunities in FY15 to hear from HUD and to get further guidance. Some of the areas or topics that we got feedback on was the need for more training around grant administration, performance reviews, HUD reporting, as well as other HUD programs and what's happening with other HUD housing programs. There are a number of different people that we have that will be participating in the training, so not only our own staff, but staff from other program offices like Community Planning Development, CPD. We also have a number of contractors that we're working with. And of course, there's training made available through our training grantees. Next slide, please. So in terms of, there is some technical assistance that's available regarding financial management of grants. We have, and what some of the requirements are around grants management. We have a new contractor, Booth Management Consulting. It used to be Meyer Hoffman McCann. We have a new contractor. Right now they have scheduled a certain number of financial reviews. Those grantees that are going to be reviewed, those have already been identified, about 44 of those that will take place in FY15. But there are also over 60 TA sessions. And so those grantees have already been identified as well. In many cases, a point of contact recommended an agency for TA sessions. That is really focused on capacity building. So those resources are there and available so that your agency can have any questions answered about what the requirements are and how to implement that. And so we're hoping that you see that as a resource separate and apart from any financial audit that HUD is conducting. Those are TA sessions to help you build capacity in that area.
So the TA sessions are for individual agencies?
Right.
So, I think there's kind of this ongoing struggle around figuring out how to be reporting compliant. Is there some forum, or can we create some webinars to make it happen so that there might be a kind of an in-depth, this is what you need to get compliant on this particular piece that maybe HUD and Meyer Hoffman can, or I'm sorry, Booth can do jointly.
Yes, and we are planning on that. So, I think very soon we're going to be having the webinar that Booth is helping us with on the OMB Omni Circular, but I believe that there are others that are planned around financial, how to be compliant on some of these regulations. So that's in the works. But if there's anything specific that you have feedback on, I want to know X or Y, certainly give us that feedback.
I think the alternative formats for the PARs would be rank high for people on this.
Yeah, and that is, I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the first ones on the list.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting some questions coming in. First, will Booth also perform performance reviews?
They are doing the financial audits, yes. So similar to what Meyer Hoffman was doing.
All right. And where will the 61 TA sessions be located?
Well, so they would be with different agencies around the country. Those agencies have been identified.
So these are on-site visits.
I think it's a combination.
Okay.
But I also wanted to say that if you're an agency that may not have been identified to receive the TA session, but you do have questions and want to see if there may be any resources available for you to work with a contractor, you should let us know, and we could see if something could be put into the schedule to allow that. I would, on that issue, I would reach out to Phyllis Ford, who is helping to coordinate that schedule.
And then, sorry, just one other question came in, whether the TA sessions are for intermediaries, subgrantees, or both?
That is a good question. I know that for intermediaries, I know they're for LHCAs and state housing finance agencies, for all the range of agencies that are in the program. I think if they're for a sub-grantee, that would have to be in coordination, sub-grantee, it would have to be in coordination with the intermediary.
Even if you're in your own HUD-approved housing counseling agency, or an LHCA, and you have an intermediary?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's all for questions for now.
Okay. Next slide, please. This year, we also are working with a new contractor, ICF. This is part of an initiative that HUD has across all of our programs, a TA initiative. And so the Office of Housing Counseling received some departmental funds to focus on this effort. And this year, we're targeting those resources to help build capacity of intermediaries and provide more resources to those agencies. And so we got feedback from intermediary state housing finance agencies on what issues or topics you wanted training or capacity building on. We have a schedule of webinars. I think one has already happened. We have another one, I believe, happening tomorrow. And we'll also be, in conjunction with the contractor, developing some toolkits and resources. I also wanted to mention this department-wide effort. There is a website. It's called the HUD Exchange. That is another source of resource for agencies. You may want to go there. I think you have to register to get on, but there are other trainings that are there that any HUD participant or grantee could take advantage of, online training. So I would recommend that you go and look. Let us know if you have any questions about that. But there are already other trainings that are available there for agencies to take advantage of. Next slide. So as part of the meeting that we had a few months ago, Secretary Castro did come and speak to the group, and one of the issues that was discussed with him was this challenge that the industry is facing regarding technology and client management systems. And you asked if he would organize a technology summit, maybe bring together some foundations to help figure out how we would fund, transforming the type of technology used by the industry. And so we've been in discussions with his office and others at HUD. We do not have a definite yes or no with regards to whether we can hold this summit. We're exploring at other ideas. We do have a philanthropic office within one of our programs that does partner with foundations. We're exploring whether we should work through that office to kind of move this along. So we're still working on that idea. We're also planning on meeting with some client management system providers to understand how they're meeting some of the challenges about the issues that are being raised by their users. And we're also encouraging, when we can, for agencies to take the trainings that are available, because some of the feedback that we heard is that yes, there are problems with the systems, but sometimes there's a need, not necessarily just for the counselor to be trained, but for management at the agency to be trained in order to maximize, the use of the functionality of the system. So we know that there's still many issues here, but we're trying to work on different fronts to see what we can do to try to move this issue forward and address it. And I think that's it. The next slide. So again, we're always asking folks, if you're not subscribed to The Bridge, please subscribe. We have lots of good information there every month. And let us know if you have any additional questions as well. You can always, you can get more information at HUD.gov, and then I'll just open it up for any more questions.
Great, and we're right at 2 o'clock, but I think we're going to keep going a little bit to let people see if we can get some questions answered, but won't go more than 10 minutes.
The only question out there, I'm not sure whether, we'll ask and see if you have anything to say on it. It's whether there are plans for CFPB to take over HCO.
I have not heard that, so I am not aware of any discussions about that.
And maybe the bigger context, which we've brought up before, is that there's lots of concerns about HCO not being up to speed, both on its performance and also on the help desk and the responsiveness of the help desk. And we have received lots of frustration and complaints about being able to submit to HUD. Things have gotten better, but there's still challenges that agencies have. And we actually hear about them from CounselorMax and from HCO, though more about HCO, about submitting electronically and getting better solutions there. And I mean, I think it does speak to what you mentioned earlier, too, which is that some of this may be training, some of it may be problems that exist at HCO. And, but it's hard for the agencies themselves to sort out what the missing link is, and there's not enough support for them to help figure out that piece.
Yes, we have, we've heard, have gotten that feedback before, and we know there are a lot of challenges. We have conversations with FHFA, with Fannie. We express all those concerns to them. We tell them about how that's impacting the program and the challenges that the agencies are facing. So, and we'll continue to voice those concerns and try to see if any progress, we can make any progress in that area.
Great. So is that it on questions, Matthew?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, good. This is a great help. We are we'll continue this conversation into 2015 and are eager to dive in on some of these other issues. Is there anything you wanted to say about the developments with HAWC while we have you on the phone?
Right. Yeah. So HUD was extremely disappointed when the CR came out and the provision about HAWC limiting us from using any funds for that. And I think there was some concerns we understand regarding the reduction in MIP and whether the fund had reached a point to sustain or to reduce the mortgage insurance premiums. There was some concern around that, and there may be have been other issues involved, I'm sure, as well. So we are, we still think that the principles of HAWC are, extremely important, and we'll continue to do what we can to promote the idea of embedding housing counseling in the mortgage process, homeownership process. But yes, it was not. We were disappointed by that outcome.
Yeah, I think we need to do obviously some work around a range of issues, but one of them is this idea that it was likely to be an income generator for HUD rather than an income drain, and that's
yeah, I think there was definitely some confusion about that, right, because it was not going to be a drain the way that we had constructed it. And we had actually, we had gotten so many comments, I think over 400 about HAWC, and we're in the process of, we're going to make changes to the original program that was, that we had proposed, a pilot, based on all those really substantive comments. But, that we'll just have to see what can be done going forward.
So you'll go ahead with the rulemaking as if nothing happened, but you just won't be able to implement it. Is that right? Actually,
I don't know. We're actually getting guidance from our appropriation attorneys about the interpretation of the provision and what can be done. It wasn't rulemaking. It was actually just a notice that we had put out with the proposed structure of the program. So we're in meetings this week and next to get their official interpretation of the provision and the appropriations.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Ruth.
You're welcome.
before everybody drops off, we had, if you attended the Leaders in Housing Counseling meeting last week, we have a survey which Matthew's put together. We'll send a link out to it, but we'd love to get your feedback. It's all about both substance and format, and trying to just get and pick and choose the questions you want to answer. You don't have to answer them all, but we're really trying to get your information there. Do want to do a good shout out to what a great meeting it was. So for 2015, our schedule, because the first Thursday of the month is going to be on January 1st, I'm not going to be here. Matthew, going to be here? No, he's not going to be here.
No, I will not be.
Okay, so we're pushing both calls in January back a week, so the 8th and the 22nd. That'll give you a chance to get your feet on the ground and give us a chance to get our feet on the ground as well. So let's do that. Certainly keep in mind joining National Housing Resource Center. We have in 2015, if you put us in the budget now, that would be great. We doubled our membership this year, so we started the year with 45 members. As of yesterday, we had 91, and 91 organizations are members. So that's quite a growth curve, and thank you so much for all that you're doing out there in the field and the support you're showing. And we'll do plenty more in the upcoming year. Thanks a lot.